Committee. First is approval of the April 25th, 2024 Special Services meeting. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve them?
Second.
Paul Cormier motion, Kelly Allen second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. I'm not going to say any, so I'm going to suspend public comment until the end so that we get a lot. You guys have already had the enrollment data, the attendance data, and the bus data. Just to be clear, nothing has changed from last month. You've had an opportunity to go through it. Are there any questions on any of that data that has been in your packet? Seeing none?
And Kim did just make bigger copies if anyone wants.
Perfect. We're going to need those for next month. Perfect. If anybody wants one as they leave tonight, feel free to take them. They've already made them, so that would get through that. We're going to now go to number 6, special education update, but I also want to make this board aware before Sarah speaks that I believe, what are you doing tomorrow? Is it a graduation?
Oh, yes.
So Sarah is graduating with her CAS with an advanced educational leadership from the University of New England. So very proud.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, go ahead.
I was like, what am I doing tomorrow?
We were made aware.
Well, thank you. All right, so my presentation did change around a little bit, so I'm gonna pass this. Is it okay if I just pass it down this way and it goes around? So it's sort of going back and forth for everything there. This is the updated one here. So what I'm talking about tonight is the Special Education 504 process manifestation determination. One thing that we sort of talked about a few times so far was what manifestation determinations are, and then it sort of came up as maybe not having all the information and sort of knowing what they are. So I wanted to sort of talk about that. If you go to the next slide, please. So if a student, actually before I go into this part of it, what I'm going to talk about is really a lot of IEP related stuff throughout this process, but it carries into 504, so section 504 as well. And at the end, I'll talk about a little bit of differences. Thank you very much for helping pass that out, but what was passed out was the presentation and then some handouts from IDEA for the regulations that go along with the information in the presentation. So if a student has been suspended for more than 10 school days, then the IEP team must come together within 10 school days to determine if the behavior incident was a manifestation of the student's disability or disabilities. And during that time, we're looking at their educational disabilities and other information that we may have about the student. And then during the manifestation meeting, the IEP team or 504 team would look at the student's current IEP, 504. They would also look at teacher observations and other relevant information such as evaluations. That could be functional behavior assessments, it could be behavior support plans the student currently has. And there's 3 questions that the team asks, but the third question sort of answers itself by the 2 other ones. The first one, the team's looking at if the conduct in question was caused by or had a direct and substantial relationship to the student's disability. So when you're in the meeting, usually the LDA at that point talking about, they talk about what the student's disability is, what this question is, and then they look at the student's records. So we're looking at the IEP, we're looking at the student's behavior plan, we're looking at identifications, and then the team then answers that question. If the team is sort of like even at that point, then the LDA would have that part of it to say who, yes or no to that first question. The second question asked if the conduct in question was a direct result of the local school district's failure to implement the student's IEP. So then that is a little bit of a more obvious part of it. You go through accommodations, you go through services, you talk about the behavior support plan, there's lots of different parts there. And then that question gets answered. The third question that's not here because it's not part of the law there is just saying, clarifying if it was considered a manifestation of the student's disability. And then the next slide, please. So when answering the questions, there's 2 outcomes that come out of it. The team determines that it was a manifestation of the student's disability, or the team determines that it was not a manifestation of the student's disability or disabilities. And then when these are 2 big ones that I wanted to bring up here too. So if the team answers yes to any question, so either of those 2 first questions, then it is determined to be a manifestation of the student's disability. And then if the team answers yes to number 2, then it's the LEA, so that person that's in the meeting as the LEA representative, plus also the school and the district. They have to take immediate steps to remedy those things that were not being followed. So if it was a behavior support plan not being followed, then we go over that behavior support plan with that teacher. If it's accommodations not being followed, then we go through that part of it. And then same thing with services. We go through and fix what was happening there. And then if it's determined not to be a manifestation, the assigned disciplinary action continues for that student. The team could talk about doing a functional behavior assessment to look at what is going on with the student and what additional services or modifications or accommodations the student needs to address that. The other part is that the student continues to receive their special ed services during this time. So even though it's considered a manifestation of not a manifestation of student's disability, they're out for more time, the student then is still getting their services that they have. If it is determined to be a manifestation of their disability, then it's a little bit more complex at that point. So there's a few different things here. First, the team has to complete a functional behavior assessment. The only time that would be different is if they had a current functional behavior assessment that already addressed those concerns. Then the team will look at the behavior support plan or behavior intervention plan to support that student and then make the changes. But if we're determining that it is a manifestation of that student's disability, we have to come up with some ways of changing their program and their plan to support them moving forward. And then, except for under special circumstances, which we'll talk about later on, and I put in there the rules that it comes from, and then I have the handouts there. The student returns to the placement in which the child was removed from. So if a student was removed from the middle school, we had the manifestation meeting, we determined that it was a manifestation of the student's disability, they could return back to the school right after that meeting. And then there's lots of different discussions. Sometimes the team discusses that it's not great for the student to come back that day, so the student comes back the next day, or it could be the end of the school year, so the team talks about all of those different things and how we can support the student through their educational needs. These are those exceptions, which are really, really difficult to read on the screen just because there's so many of them. But those exceptions, so if a student has met one of these exceptions and it still is considered a manifestation, or it's not considered a manifestation meeting of their disability, it doesn't quite matter for that side of it. But if a student carries a weapon to school, or carries a weapon to school, or has a weapon at school or on school premises, that could be a reason why the student wouldn't return back to the school at that point. Another one would be knowingly has or uses illegal drugs and sells or solicits the sale of controlled substances. Would be another reason why the student may not return back to school, and then has inflicted serious bodily injury. And then those are all the terms, and I put below it sort of what falls into those areas, just as the definitions. All right. And then the last slide just talks about the 504 differences. So the process is the same for those eligible under Section 504, with the exception that services are not provided when it's determined not to be a manifestation of their disability. There's also a special rule for drug and alcohol violations, so if a student is engaging in that part of it, has a suspension related to that, then there actually is not, you don't have to hold a 504 manifestation meeting at that point. But if it was a student under IDEA, their IEP would have to hold it. So that's just a little bit of a difference there. That was maybe the quickest I've ever spoken. That
was so good. All right, any other questions? Ms. Keynes?
Yeah.
On my phone.
Is there a progression here? Do you get a 504 and then get?
No, not necessarily. You could have a 504 first and then you get an IP later on. Some students may just be referred right for special ed.
I guess I didn't understand how you get a 504, I guess.
Yeah, so they're two different programs, so they're sort of, they're through two different rules. So right here, the ones I gave you here for IDEA, so that's for students with, for special ed. And then there's students that qualify under section 504, and those are students that have like medical conditions that are significantly impacting them within the school setting. So students, so if a student has ADHD, and their parents refer them for section 504, then the team would come together and then look at that. And then look, and they have a deliberation form. It's not as involved of a step as special ed is. Special ed has lots of timelines, it has lots of evaluations that happen. It could happen through 504, but we could also just have a doctor's note that says that Sarah has ADHD. So, and that's where we sort of go.
And also, an IEP means that it negatively affects the child's education. So just because they have ADHD, but they have good grades, they could qualify for a 504,
Yep.
meaning they have to sit in a certain section, or they have to have preferred seating because, you know, they have low vision. But the IEP it has things in place for them to get an education. So they have goals based on English, math, socialization, that type of thing, correct?
Yep.
I just want to make sure anybody else in the committee doesn't have any questions, because we have to go. I just wanted to make sure, I didn't want you to think I wasn't calling on you. So anybody else in the committee have any questions? Yes, Mr. Downs.
So I need just a better explanation of the 2.5-inch knife.
Yes.
So a knife's a knife, a 2.5-inch knife can kill somebody.
Yes, so this part of it here is not part of anything that I have created myself. That's just a law that is in there for weapons. So I can.
Can you just explain it like, so someone shows up with a 2.5-inch knife, it's,
2.5-inch blade there.
what happened?
So I think at that point, they still probably would go through the disciplinary factors, so they would have to be suspended. It doesn't matter, they're just below the 2.5 inches. For this part of it, for us here, we have to have it be classified as a weapon in order for it to be considered a special circumstance. So if it's under that side of it, it's not considered a weapon.
That's just how the law defines it.
Yep. This is not Sarah's,
No,
like,
I'm just,
yeah. I can go through too, because I did notice that one doesn't have the citing for where I took it from, so I can get that sent to Dr. Bryant.
yeah, it's, a knife's a knife. If
Yeah.
someone shows up to school with a knife, it's 2.5 inches to kill somebody.
We have to report it differently even for any student, depending on the length of the knife. It's just a different.
So what if it's 3 inches? I mean, I'm not being sarcastic, what
No.
if it's 3 inches instead of 2.5? Is it
So
some
it's considered,
qualified?
Then it would be considered under a weapon there, so if a student brought that, then we could then say the student cannot return back to whatever school they were at.
I don't like that law. 2.5 inches, it doesn't matter, they show up with a knife, I don't like that law. Anyways, we can move on.
we do have policies though too, right? So like anybody comes in with, let's say, we've had somebody come in with a razor one time.
Yeah.
And they were going to a friend's house, but it was considered a weapon. So this is just for special education. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. This is just the law for the exception that talks about whether they have a disability or not. But just because they bring in a weapon doesn't mean that it would be a manifestation either.
Yeah.
So,
So really thinking about this part of it, and just to be completely clear, I am very, very tired right now, so I'm hoping I'm making sense with everything. But if a student brings a knife in, let's say that's 2 inches long, they still get suspended for that one. We have a manifestation meeting for it. We go through the process of determining if it's a manifestation or not. But the special factors part of it, for the exceptions, doesn't come into play at that point. But if they come in with a 3-inch knife, at that point, we could say, regardless of if it's a manifestation or not of their disability, we could say at that point that because it's considered a weapon under the federal guidelines and the laws, they need an interim placement during the 45 days after that.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Mr. Bells, did you have your hand raised?
So, I used to think you could carry a pocket knife, but maybe the law has probably changed it.
Yeah, you can't even bring in like
We
a.
used to have a gun in your back in school, they go under the way on the road.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up the serious bodily injury in the definition, because that's a pretty broad definition as well.
Well, I'm hungry.
Okay. Well, since you didn't bring it up, I didn't. Any other questions? I would suggest if you read through this and you have any more questions that you email Sarah, because I think it's really important when we're talking about discipline that we understand if it's a manifestation or not. So I would encourage you, if you go home and you read it and you have any other questions, email Sarah and she'd be more than happy to meet with you. Yes, Mr. Downs?
And I will say, talking about that, I know our new superintendent is already gonna put that in our, where we can talk to like Sarah, like all the directors. We don't have to go strictly through her or Allison, so that's gonna be nice, you know, if you got a question about special ed, just go right to Sarah. So that's gonna be nice where she's gonna put that into place. Anyway.
Yeah, and in the meantime, if you don't feel comfortable, you want to bring it up here, we can always let Sarah know ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, perfect. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you
Good
very
luck
much.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
We're sure you're going to do amazing. Potential rezoning maps for 2025, 2026.
Okay. I think you received this, yes, in your packet. We've been doing quite a great deal of work on this, and by we, I mean Kim, who is extraordinary. Her knowledge of the city, the zones right now, the schools, the streets. I just want to acknowledge that she's been a tremendous help as we've looked at the rezoning possibilities for when we have the new school. We know we need to get the word out sooner than the beginning of that following school year, so we wanted to bring it to you as soon as possible. We had been waiting for some assistance from the city. We didn't receive that, and so this is really the work that we've done upstairs in central office to try to make sense of the zoning. Just a couple of notes, and then if you have questions or areas where you feel we need to look at or recommendations, I'm going to suggest that I take all of your questions and thoughts and recommendations and we'll mull them over and bring something back in June, unless we can answer them right now. But just a couple of things to keep in mind. The bus routes, based on this rezoning map, would not change at all from what we have right now. The only difference would be the buses would stop at the new school. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then a couple of things that we need to think about, which we just haven't gotten to that point yet, but just to have on your radar. We need to think about if we have students who, after the rezoning, would be moved from their current school to a different school. Would we consider honoring requests to stay at their current school? So if we have a student who's supposed to go into 5th grade in one school, but with the rezoning would be moved to a different school, how do we want to handle that? And similarly, if we have a student beginning kindergarten this coming school year, but the next year they would be moving to a different school, how do we want to handle that? So I don't have the answer for that. I think that's just something we have to think about. We have a sample policy that I believe the board looked at several years ago when there was another rezone, the last time the city was rezoned. Is that right? Yeah.
Memo, but I don't know that.
It was a memo, it never went into the policy.
The policy ever came about, we couldn't find it.
Okay, so there was a recommendation that we looked at some policy around that, so I can also bring that language to policy in June, just for the committee to look at and to consider. But that's what I've got for the rezoning.
So you're suggesting any questions after they look? So these last 3 pages are the streets that would be affected, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And your suggestion would be if anybody has any questions, they should just reach out to you and then we can address them at the next meeting?
Yep, questions, recommendations, anything like that. I'm happy to take any of that, yes.
You want them by email or?
Sure. Yep.
I would also say that if we email them, we need to make sure that we're addressing them at a public forum. So even if somebody emails them, we put them together and bring them forward at the next meeting, because this needs, emailing them and answering that doesn't really make it public for transparency. So if we email Allison any questions, it would just be to email her so she's prepared, and then she would come before at the next board meeting and address those questions publicly. Just so, because if you have that question, somebody else might as well. Ms. McGowan?
The colored map that we have,
Yep.
is that the proposed new districting, or is that what currently is with Kim's notes of changes?
Exactly. It's the current one, and then
Okay.
she's noted the recommended changes.
Any other questions? Okay. So again, anybody has any questions, including anybody watching, if anybody at home has any questions, they could email you as well, and then you can address them here publicly. So I think that's it. We do, hold on, I'm getting back to my agenda, I was scrolling down. We do have, do we have any other? No? Okay, at this time, seeing no public comment, I'm going to end public comment, and we do have a non-public. Do you know what the,
Yes, it's RSA 91-A:3 to parentheses K.
Make a motion, we go into non-public?
so Kelly Allen makes the motion,
Second.
Matt Pappas seconds the motion. Roll call vote.
Mr. Pappas?
All right, so we just came out of non-public. I would take a motion to adjourn. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Mr. Pappas?
I move we reject the request, parent request that was brought to the committee.
I second it.
So Matt Pappas made the motion, Kelly Allen seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I would take a motion to adjourn. Kelly Allen makes a motion to adjourn. Mr. Cormier seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Just want to say tonight.